shows that make you think, music that moves you. It could only be one place. Universal Broadcasting Network. Tune in at ubnradio.com.
It's another rare rainy day here in Los Angeles. We're very happy for the rain. I did a rain dance a couple of months ago, John, and this is the result.
It's paying off.
It's paying off. And on this fantastic rainy day here on the Tech Trends show, where we talk about tech trends impacting your business, we have the fantastic and fabulous Raquel Krouse from Sandrock Strategy, who is one of the greatest social media strategists of all time, as far as I'm concerned. And Raquel and I used to work together at Interpublic, the media agency, Marcom agency that I was at for so long, and really helped us define our social media business there, and then went on to found Initiative, the media agency Initiative's social media program and strategy. So Raquel's now independent as well, has her own company, is working with a lot of different brands and sort of figuring out what is the next for clients and people who are trying to understand how to navigate in the social space. So welcome, Raquel Krouse. Oh my, we have the big crowd again.
Yes.
A big crowd in the radio station. So for the last few weeks, we haven't been able to fit everyone, and we've been doing construction.
And they braved the rain today.
Yeah, but they came in the rain. So wave to everybody in the radio station.
LA problems.
LA problems, right. So so tell us a little bit about your background, because you also have the other interesting spin that you have is this deep insight and experience in healthcare, which was so important to us when we were working at Interpublic, because we had so many healthcare clients, and there's so many issues with any type of Marcom advertising for healthcare because of government laws and restrictions, and doing social media strategy for them is a whole nother thing. So it was really helpful to have your expertise. So tell us a little bit about how you came to where we are today, Raquel Krouse.
Well, one of my first jobs within digital was for a pharmaceutical digital agency. So I really started with that pharma background right away. And what was interesting, we didn't realize it then, but we were building communities. I did a community called Pfizer for Women, which basically had articles about issues that women cared about.
And was this
like
6 or 7 years ago? Like
this was
10 years ago?
I don't want to.
20.
Yeah, something like that. Probably about 15 years
15 years ago, right. So you were really at the beginning of building communities.
Exactly. Right. We didn't even know that it was a community,
right.
But it was.
Right.
So then, fast forward, moving over to the lab, when we first started talking about social, we weren't even using the term social media. We were talking about user-generated content,
right,
and social networks.
One day we just stood up, I remember, in our technology lab, and we said, let's call it social media.
Yeah.
Moving forward. I mean, it was literally like that. And in fact, that was the first time that we brought up Twitter to clients, and Facebook, and all of these things were just literally launching.
What year was that?
What was it? 06, 07?
Yeah,
something
around
like
Interesting.
that. Yeah.
Because I grew up with AOL and worked in online communities in AOL, and we called them online communities. So chat rooms, message boards, all that kind of stuff, but never social media until there was a buzzword that became available at some time.
I think Lori might have created that.
Really?
I might have created
Well, look at that.
Well, I know people who came to the lab in those years, it was the first time they heard of these things, for the very first time. And I remember when we had the U.S. Army in the lab, and I was showing them what moms of, guys overseas were doing on Facebook, because they were all just trying to speak to other moms about what it felt like to have a kid, in a war zone. And the Army itself was like shocked to see that, because they didn't realize that people were creating communities outside of what they were providing.
Yeah, and I think brands like the Army didn't realize that they could participate in social media.
Right.
I think in the beginning, everyone thought this was for the entertainment industry. So it was fun, engaging content. They didn't realize that even a locksmith company
could do it, right?
Can do it.
And it was dangerous always, too, which gets back into healthcare, because healthcare has so many restrictions, right?
Yeah. And it's still a tough space to really do a powerful social media campaign, because there is all of these legal issues. And I think pharma companies are still scared of opening up their brand, but the issue is that the brand is already open because people are already talking on these open platforms, and that's not going to change.
Right, and it's only going to keep evolving. And I think the biggest stress for most people that I'm talking to now is which platform and what, and you have to keep trying a new platform. Like, when does it end? Because I see these folks having such anxiety about Pinterest and Instagram and Snapchat, and what do they do, and how much should they do, and and can they ever sleep, and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's the big question, right? Which network should we be on?
Right.
We're on Facebook. We've built this huge audience. Now Facebook is telling us that we aren't reaching our audience that we've already built with our posts. So where do we go now? I think visual is huge.
Yeah.
So
visual storytelling.
I mean, we were communicating via text, so Twitter, 140 characters or less. But we've always seen with Facebook posts that the ones that have the pictures, that have the videos, are getting the most engagement. I think it was Forrester just did a study that showed that Instagram had huge engagement compared to Facebook and Twitter, and it's completely a visual platform. So it's really about developing a visual strategy going forward. And what Instagram is doing, which is really interesting, is they're working with advertisers and trying to teach them and make their images smarter, and to teach them how to tell a story through their images. So they're making the ads work. They're making them more native to their platform.
It seems like I recently did a panel with Pinterest as well at AdTech in New York, and Pinterest talked a lot about how they're rolling out programs for advertisers. Like, it seems like everyone is in teaching mode constantly, because as they roll out new solutions for advertisers don't know how to use this stuff. Why should they? How can they keep up? And there's new inventions and solutions all the time. So I think that's a great point, that you have to continuously train your users.
And I think what's good about this at the time that we're in right now is I don't think things are changing as quickly as they were. Right. So, the past few years, Instagram, Pinterest, they're launching these new business solutions where they didn't have advertising. But now brands have the opportunity to play catch up a little bit, to get smarter, to learn from these platforms that are helping to educate them. So there's an opportunity. So they can start
to get experiences on those things. God, I could use some pharma right now. I did something to my right rib cage. So that's what happens as you get older. You turn to pharmaceutical solutions more often.
Many people do, yes.
So how do you think most brands then right now are all investing in social, at a high level? Are they building in-house, or are they building out-of-house? I know when you were at Initiative, you were really busy building a whole new approach for that company to offer solutions to their clients. Do you think that that's just as valuable now, that agencies have that social media role, or social media agencies have that role, or are brands pulling all of that in-house?
I think it really varies. So Initiative is a media company, and they wanted to understand what their role in social was. So they were doing all of these paid social media campaigns. How could they move into the earned category? I was just on a call for 2015 planning with a brand. They had their 5 big agencies on the call, and everybody had their social media ideas. Everybody wanted to drive the strategy for next year. So who owns social is still a big question.
Who owns social? I think that requires a sound effect, John.
Oh, okay.
All right. Who owns social, ladies and gentlemen? Well, yeah, it is seems to me, just like you said, that it's almost that piece of meat now. So you have ad agency, you have social media agency, you have PR company, you have tech company, you have everyone going to the client, to the brand with social media solutions. So how does a brand choose who to go with? Is it just who they trust?
A lot of times I think they're going with their traditional agency, maybe the one they have the closest relationship to. But a lot of times they're choosing the ones that are coming in with these innovative ideas that make sense. I think a lot of agencies are still coming back with many of the same ideas again and again, and that's giving these smaller social agencies the opportunity to come in and be innovative. But it's also about integration. So when you have all these different agencies doing different things, it makes sense to just think of social media as another channel. And we talked about this for years.
Yeah.
Is social media a standalone channel, or does it really need
Part
to
of
be
something
integrated into everything else that you're doing? Is social media the content, or is it a place to amplify the content? And I think it's really about amplification of the content.
Right, being that sort of bigger loudspeaker. So I was just at another agency event, iMedia Summits agency event in some resort somewhere in Florida.
Sounds glorious. I think that needs a sound.
Right.
And well, one of the big things that agencies are going through right now is what's our role?
Yeah.
Because they are having their revenue sort of eaten away by all these other companies, and they have tech companies going directly to their brands, and everyone's going directly to the brands. So one of the things that popped out of that event was that agencies really can provide this consigliere role. And that's right, ladies and gentlemen, I just used Italian.
Concierge.
Consigliere, because we're the mafia. This role of guiding the brand, so that even if there are 5 or 6 different vendors, right, that the agency, the big main AOR agency, is the one holding it all together, which I think is a great role for an AOR, for an agency of record, who owns that year-long relationship with the brand, and the brand saying, okay, I want these guys to do this company is going to do that, these guys are going to do that. Well, somebody has to manage the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
So maybe that's where it's at. So now you're an independent consultant. So you were at Initiative for a couple of years running their business, and now you're an independent. Are most brands or agencies coming to you and saying, how do we do this? Or are they saying, how do we do this differently? Is there
I think it's a combination of both. It depends. If we're talking about pharma and healthcare, it's still a lot of how do we do this?
Yeah.
Outside of that, brands that have been doing it for a while, how do we do this differently? How can we be innovative? And a lot of these brands they still don't have a plan. So they're doing social, and they don't even know if it's working for them. They don't really have a plan. They don't really know what their goals are. And it's just going back to any type of media plan, no matter what channel you're looking at.
You have to keep looking at it.
Yeah.
Well, do you find, though, that brands are still, or even agencies are still using their intern? Or has everyone moved past, my intern will tweet for us, and and screw up and get fired and cause a big rift in the social media space? Or is everyone finally getting real that this is strategic and tactical, that you have to assign a budget to it, that you have to write it out every day, it's real time? I mean, is everyone finally on that bandwagon?
They're getting there. I think it's still very much a combination of.
So there's still people out there that are just using their intern. That's crazy land.
It seems like it, but a lot of these interns are really good and know more.
Right, because they're of that generation.
Exactly.
They're the millennial generation. But do you think that just because you're a digital native, that you have the sophistication to understand the business of the brand?
It's two-sided, right? So when we as an agency, when we run communities and we hire community managers, I always say we need to do it as a partnership with the brand. You're the only ones who knows the brand inside and out, what's going on. So, it can't be this intern freelancer working virtually on a different state.
Right,
They
right.
need to be tied into the brand.
Yeah, the Newsroom, which I just love that show. Do you ever watch that show? I mean, Aaron Sorkin is just like the greatest mind in the world, and if anyone knows him, please tell him to
I
come on.
don't know him, but a friend of mine writes for that show.
Oh, well, tell him.
And they filmed it here.
Oh, did they really? Well, tell Aaron Sorkin to come on the Tech Trends show, because I would love to speak to him. Anyway, his dialogue just blows my mind. But on that show, there's been quite a lot about the role of social media in journalism, and whether citizen journalists should really just be as valid as a standard reporter and all the practices and policies there. But also you had, basically a journalist send a tweet in the middle of the night when she was half asleep that was completely inappropriate, and she got fired for it. So, we're really still seeing that kind of unbalancedness of social media.
Yeah, I mean, publishing before, there were so many checks and balances before anything was published, and now we can publish something inappropriate right now. I think you should, actually.
Okay, I'm going to send a tweet to my husband. No, just kidding.
So when you do have an intern, or you have these, people that basically have this huge platform to talk about your brand, mistakes can be made, and we've seen many mistakes be made, and I'm not really sure how to
manage it.
Yeah.
Well, I was so impressed. Recently, I brought you in to work on an entertainment client for us, a small reality production company who was just getting into digital, and they have a great business in sort of the traditional syndication area where they have reality programming that is in markets throughout the country, and that model still works for them. They figured it out, but they wanted to move digital. And so you took a look at 2 of their shows and came back and sat down with them and said, okay, this is what people care about and what they're talking about. And they were so shocked and surprised, right? Because they had never done that monitoring that you do. So can you talk about the importance of monitoring? Because I know that's one of your first things that you say to everyone is you've got to monitor.
I love social media listening.
Yeah.
I mean, it is still my favorite tactic per se within social media.
Is it the first thing you would tell people to do?
It's the first thing I think that any brand needs to do. They need to understand their audience, and it's so easy with these social media monitoring tools to just eavesdrop on these conversations. So who's talking about you? Who's talking about your competitors? Do they like you? What do they like? What don't they like? Where are they on Twitter? And what are they doing on Twitter? Are they in these forums, and which forums are they on? And what is the opportunity in these forums? Is it just media? Is it sponsored content? But through social media listening, you can identify all of these content opportunities as well as keyword research. So for these shows, a cooking show, what diets are people talking about? What are they searching for? What type of food?
Are these monitoring tools grabbing from blogs and forums and Twitter and Facebook?
Yeah,
and
any open
any open source.
Exactly.
Source. And are they all fairly open now, the main ones? I mean, can you pull from everything as long as you have access to the APIs, basically?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people still keep their Facebook pages private, but you can still, because there's such a large user base, that you still can get a nice piece of Facebook.
Yeah. For those of us that haven't really tweaked our privacy settings, which most of us pretend we do.
A lot of people don't understand or don't even know that their content is public.
Right. And my feeling is let it go to the world. I have nothing to hide. I close my door when I need something to hide. But right, so it pulls from everything. And do you have favorite tools right now for monitoring? I know
We're using SM2, Sysomos, Radian 6 is still being used.
So those are all paid for platforms you pay for, you log on to.
But there are some free ones. Like if anyone is interested in finding out what's being said about their brand, they can go to Social Mention right now, and it's a pretty decent tool to just get a snapshot.
So you go to socialmention.com.
Yeah, and type in your brand, your keywords around your brand, your category, and you can pull from Twitter, from YouTube, from blogs, from forums, and see what people are saying.
And then where they're chattering. So one of the things that always came up for us all these years is, okay, it's great to have a great listening tool, but then you have to have someone that interprets it and then comes up with the strategy. And again, that's where I was so impressed with you, because you took that information and you actually turned it into, okay, here are the next 15 steps that you have to do. So it's not enough just to type into Social Mention, but then what do you do? So do you have a philosophy and an approach for what are the next steps for somebody?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing what comes out of the research. Sometimes you think, for instance, we did something for the Home Depot way back when, and paint was the category. And what we found out is that women were actually the ones having this paint conversation online. Men were doing the buying and maybe doing the work, but it was women that were having these conversations and maybe picking out the colors and telling.
So the women were sort of the designers in the house, and they were saying, okay, this is the color I want. And they were chatting with each other about it.
Exactly. So there needed to be a content strategy for these women, even though men may have been doing the purchasing. So, different things with regards to your target audience can come out of it, with regards to topics that you didn't realize were so important.
Or you get a whole new target audience that you didn't know you had.
Exactly.
There's a famous in my world story about Cinnamon Toast Crunch. Have you heard this one?
I don't know, but I love Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
All right, well, so here's the Cinnamon Toast Crunch. So our old agency, McCann, was doing this for General Mills. And traditionally, all the breakfast companies go after the mom demographic, always, for years and years and years, right? That kids, mom thing. And what they found out after doing some social media monitoring is that there's this just huge demographic of 18 to 24-year-old guys who are stoned at midnight turning to Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
That is a great target.
Right. So it became a whole new mining area for them to dig into. And so now they've created a new segment, a new target. I don't know if they're still banging on it, but then they went and did an Xbox buy, a media buy on the Xbox platform, because guess who's up stoned late at night playing on Xbox? That demographic that's eating, Cinnamon Toast Crunch after they get a little stoned,
Yeah, I love it.
So I'm not accusing
Do you have any Cinnamon
anybody.
Toast Crunch?
I'm not saying Xbox induces marijuana or marijuana induces Cinnamon Toast Crunch, ladies and gentlemen.
But there is a correlation.
There is a correlation. But so they got a whole new sort of group there. So, all right, so you do your monitoring and then you come up with a plan.
Yeah, a strategy that's based on business objectives. We talked about that before. What's the plan? What's the goal? Is it a new product launch? Is it to maintain customers? Is it to provide customer service? And then based on what we found, to develop, a roadmap.
A roadmap. And it's really, so it could be strategic and tactical, your roadmap, because I remember you were like, okay, you got to do 5 posts a day on this platform and 6 on that and 8 on that. But then you also had the bigger story of we want to get to A to B over the next 6 months.
Yeah.
And we want to build out our, viewership of the website. So that's the big goal. But then you have these tactics to get there.
Yeah, because where are our customers talking... And they're depending on the brand, where are they talking the most? Is it pre-purchase? Is it post-purchase? Are they sharing their experience with the brand? So having a content strategy that fits with where they are in their purchase journey.
And then once you deliver that plan, then they have to figure out how they're going to do it. And how they're going to do it is when then you could even recommend solutions. Like I remember you were recommending 4 or 5 different blog networks to provide the content to fill, those posts that you were talking about.
Yeah.
So now there are blog networks who have professional bloggers they hire to basically create content for those slots that you're recommending.
It's not so easy to have an outreach strategy anymore. That whole industry has changed.
Right.
They won't just create a link for you if you give them good content. They want $300 with that link.
Right. And then there's the transparency piece. Just because you hire a blogger doesn't mean they're going to, write something that you like, and they have to disclose or they'll lose their audience. So it's fairly complex. So you make the plan, but the plan can be complex.
Yeah.
And require a lot of different talent, writers, publishers, media buyers. That's the other thing. So you and I have talked about this because I have a slight, not hostility, but some challenges always with the media buy getting in the way of the creative message, right? And that it sort of needs to be everyone together as opposed to media buy first and then creative message after that, right? So in your world now, is the media buy part of what you're doing because social media requires it, or how are those things happening?
I've seen brands spend so much time and effort creating content for such a small user base. So they need that paid media to amplify the message and to get more eyeballs. So I think it's great for attracting followers.
So you need a combination then.
You need a combination, absolutely.
And we break it out into paid, earned, and owned. And owned is the channels you already own that have a great audience, like your Facebook channel. Paid is obviously...
And your own website.
And your own website.
Because you need to think about a social strategy for your own site. Branded communities are coming back.
Oh, they are coming back. So portals are coming back.
Yeah, so I would say, advocates. So inviting 100 people into a community. We talked a lot about that way back when. I think that's coming back now that there's this confusion with, how can our users see our posts on Facebook? We want to make sure that these advocates do see our posts and do see our content.
So they're posting them in other places as well. So you have paid to push people there. You have owned, you leveraging your channels, and then earned is what may naturally happen if something cool happens, if something hits on fire.
Look, I mean, are there brands that never had to spend $1 and still had this incredible message that went entirely viral? Yes, but that's rare.
So even the Oreos, who seems to me to always be doing great things, or Red Bull, who's creating great content, so they get great, earned. you think there's still a media buy behind all of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I remember having a conversation again at AdTech, and I forget, I think it was the American Greeting Card Company, and they had done a whole thing on what moms do, and it just lit on fire. And they told me, look, we already had a media buy in place, but once it lit on fire, we just added more dollars to the part that hit.
Yeah.
Right. And we moved our budget and we adjusted for what was happening live on the campaign. When we saw everyone going nuts for this particular video, we moved our dollars there.
Which is great that they were able to see that, because you may try a lot of things, one thing catches on, and if you are nimble enough to be able to move your money to push more funds into that campaign, that's great.
That's so cool. Have you we should probably jump into our next official segment here on the Tech Trend Show. So let's have some next segment music, John. I love it. I will say, ladies and gentlemen, that John has been asking me to standardize these cues.
I've been like, what are we doing?
I love it.
But I like the spontaneity of not knowing, or the spontaneity as well.
Yeah.
The spontaneity or the spontaneity. So what are some top trends that you're seeing out there in social media? And I know you've also become a parent in the last 2 years, so you've been dividing your time between parenting and working. So you haven't been full time. But what are some of the big trends that you see bubbling up that are really interesting to you, that you find exciting?
I think personalization, right? So people know that these brands have all this information and data on them, but how are they using it? So I think we're going to see more and more within social media personalization. That's an interesting area to watch.
So is that going to be the kind of ad that follows you around for the rest of your life, or do you mean it'll be more relevant to me?
Like a company, I think it'll be more relevant. So
Okay.
Nordstrom knows right now that I'm shopping for these cute slip-on sneakers, and so I'm getting a lot of ads for these
Right.
slip-ons, right? But how about an article to me for the trends and fall and,
Fashion article, because
Exactly.
so back up that search data. Instead of following you with that same image of that pair of shoes and everything online, send you some articles.
real content versus ad.
Right. So that brings us into that concept of native advertising,
Yeah.
which I recently played a drinking game at that iMedia event, which was anytime anyone mentioned either programmatic or native, they had to do a shot. And you can imagine how many people were
Everybody,
drunk.
I'm sure was
So you're recommending, or you're advocating that native advertising does work in these situations. Like, you would love to see some articles about shoe trends.
Yeah.
I mean,
Nordstrom
who
is
wouldn't?
a great company to because they really are personal with their services. And
That's part of their brand attribute.
Yep, it
that when you
really
walk
is. So
into a
how can you
Nordstrom, right.
carry that through to their
Great
social
point, yeah.
media properties? So for instance, I just was going to a holiday party, and you go to the department store, you get your makeup done for free, and I say I'm only going to buy one lipstick from this, and $200 later I have all new makeup.
You
for
do
the
look
season.
nice today.
Oh, thanks, that's so sweet. Because I bought some new makeup at Nordstrom. But I'm not great at makeup, and this woman who is helping me knows that, and she was taking notes on me, and she's going to personally follow up with me. But why shouldn't I, on their Facebook page,
Right.
get content about makeup tips and trends? And
So is she going to then enter it into your profile, and that will suck into your Facebook?
I don't think so at this point, but I
Right.
think that's the next step for them.
Right. And that's almost talking really about omni-channel, which is this whole methodology of following a consumer along their entire path. So not multi-platform, but multi-storytelling, really
Yeah.
telling Raquel's full story as she hits every platform. And whatever they learn about you on one platform, it follows you to the next. So it's
Yeah.
not, siloed, this is what I do on Facebook, this is what I do in store, but continuing that story wherever you go, which would be so great.
It would be so great, and I can see it happening.
It's starting to
so,
happen, starting to bubble up, right?
For instance, when we do analysis on a Facebook page, we know the posts that are getting the most likes, and that's how we provide our kind of optimization tactics.
Right,
so
right.
these types of posts are getting the most engagement.
So light
but
goes
how
up.
can we do that from an individual basis, right?
Right.
So what does Lori engage with?
One click on Amazon, man. That's what I engage with.
But
According to my bookkeeper, I got to lighten up on that one clicking.
so not only looking at the group as a whole, what type of engagement are it getting, but as an
Right.
individual level, what what gets Lori to click.
And this is actually one of our trends for the Consumer Electronics Show this year, which is this idea of the Internet of Me, which is data actually finally being leveraged for that personalization, like really targeting. So let's not keep talking about big data because, that's so overwhelming. Yeah. But how does that little piece of data actually change my experience with a brand or something else? Because I hate it when I've bought the shoes and they still show up everywhere.
Yeah, so that's the thing. Once you've already closed that sales cycle, you've bought the shoes and you keep seeing it again, it just doesn't seem like smart advertising to you. It's like, show me something else maybe that would go nicely with those shoes.
Right, or keep me engaged in that conversation, but not with that one product, because then I feel really angry actually when I see that same pair of shoes, especially if I bought them 2 weeks ago
and they went on sale.
That too. That is the frequent problem. But the other thing too is I've noticed a lot of customer loyalty programs, or CRM programs actually sending me a note when I've filled out a basket but I haven't purchased it. And they'll send me a note the next day saying, hey, we noticed you haven't finished your purchase. I don't know if I like that because it feels creepy to me. Is that is that going to be more and more common, you think, where they're going to follow?
I think it's about the cadence of it.
Yeah.
If it's, did they send it to you one time and then that's it? Or did they continue to send it to you?
Yeah,
There's something
I think it was
still in
too soon. It was
your
too
shopping
soon.
bag. There's something still in your shopping bag. It's a frequency.
Yes.
Our email boxes are just bombarded by...
But it's still one of the best ways to connect with a consumer.
Well, I think what's interesting is when we first started talking about social media, we said there's no longer a need to have your own website as long as you have a Facebook page, Twitter page. Not true.
Right.
It's very important to have a website.
Everything has
social
to be
media is a
centralized.
Driver of website traffic. It's a great driver.
You need a home base now.
You need a home base. And also some people were saying that email, not Scott Wensman. He loved email. If you're listening, Scott Wensman, we love email now too.
Our media guy at the time who took a lot of abuse from us.
He did, because he really believed in email. And a lot of people at the time thought, why do you need to get an email from a company when you are their follower, fan?
Right.
You can get the content that way.
But you're feeding the machine that way. You're giving them more love.
People are still, checking their email. And another, I don't know how much time we have, but on trends, we talked a little bit about a visual strategy, having a visual strategy.
So the first one was personalization. The next one is having visualization. So having a visual strategy. So if you were starting a company right now and you wanted to embark on a visual strategy, is that making sure you have great graphic artists around? Like, how does that manifest, do you think?
Well, first, once again, starting with social media listening. Right. So are your customers using Pinterest? Are they using Instagram? What are they doing? What type of content are they engaging with? And then developing a strategy based on that. You're not going to create a new conversation on Pinterest if it's not there. You can add to that conversation, join it, enhance it. So you'll get an idea of the type of content that's being served up. We talked a little bit about pharmaceutical marketing. We did a study for, it was a bipolar drug, and we saw that they
should put that in the water in the U.S. Just put it in the water.
But there was high usage of Pinterest and people sharing kind of happy and mixed
moments,
emotions, images, and so what is the opportunity there for even a brand that manufactures bipolar medication?
Oh, interesting. I would have never thought that. So depending on the platform, you're going to see which one to activate on based on who that brand is. Is it an age thing or is it more of a product thing? Like, do packaged goods just do extremely well on Pinterest, or is it packaged goods for digital natives that do really good on Pinterest?
I know that for instance, Pinterest is very female dominated.
Okay, got
right?
it.
Where
Yep.
Instagram seems to be for the younger target.
Yeah.
So I think it's discovering who within your target is using these platforms, and then having
what we call technographics, which is the data around platform usage, basically. Because I was part of a Vine contest this last weekend, again at that iMedia event, and I was amazed. I had used Vine before, but not in a long time, and it actually took me a while to figure it out. And I was like, oh man, I'm just not a digital native. I'm like the most digitally native of my demographic. I know that. I have a lot of digital native behaviors, but it took me a while to figure it out. And I couldn't decide if it was just that the way they've updated the app, they made it harder.
Well, what was interesting, I was watching Steve Harvey the other day, and he had a professional that has a lot of vines that are trending, I guess, or very popular.
Yep. It's an art.
Yeah,
it really is an art.
He brought the guy on, and they did a little segment about how to use Vine. It was completely sponsored by Vine.
Yeah,
and I thought that was really amazing because it was just in 10 minutes you knew how to use it.
Yeah,
which is interesting because maybe Vine identified that as an issue. That
right,
people
and that's why they do it.
And that's why they do it.
Because I did find it, and I'm really fast on the uptake with technology.
Very fast. That surprises me that it took you
I
a
know,
while.
and I was like, something's wrong. Like something is wrong. Like they've, it's just like they updated Evernote, and it's so hard to share now. It's the weirdest thing. But anyway, so we also did a panel with Viners. And one of them just talked about, I forget the name, she's a very popular one, and she's doing something for the Super Bowl for Pepsi, and she just said that traditional television doesn't do it anymore. And you had to see the whole audience who were broadcast media buyers just bristle. And they were all like, sort of like, oh, she doesn't know our world at all. But the truth is, guess who hired her to do their ad for the Super Bowl? Pepsi. So she does. Right. But they were all freaked out because their world was kind of crumbling while she was saying, I don't watch TV anymore. So I'm creating content that my generation looks at. Right.
Now, and TV isn't gone. We know that. It's just changed and evolved.
And a part of the story, part of that omni-channel story. So it's so crazy. So are you personally on these platforms all the time, or are you more like your working mom demo? You're using the ones that are relevant to you.
Yeah, I mean, I would say I'm on Facebook way too much. And
Me too.
Being a new mom, I've gotten a lot of my information from these mommy groups on Facebook. And I'm also on Instagram a lot to really stay in touch with my friends' kids. They're teenagers.
Right. The teenagers love the Instagram and the Tumblr. In fact, my niece, who's 12, 13, sends tumbles or Instagrams of what she wants as gifts. Like that's what she sends. Like when I'm trying to hit her up right now for what does she want for Hanukkah, and I got links from her from Instagram. My sister said that's how she shops for her now. They don't go to any stores anymore. I mean, do you remember, did your mother used to drag you to, like, in my case it was Abraham and Strauss, but it was like Macy's on Long Island, and this painful 2 hours of school shopping, where I would go for like the overalls. For some reason I was really into overalls, and she would deny me of overalls, but like schlepping me around in Macy's. Now it's just sending links, from all these. And so brands have to then play. If a teenager's not going to go in store, what do they send instead?
Yeah, exactly.
Which I'm surprised Facebook hasn't capitalized on that, created like a gift list or wish list of what you want, and then people can just peep your page and find out and know what to get you.
Yeah, I'm using Amazon that way, actually. I created, for my 5-year-old, I created a gift list. And I sent everyone out that gift list. Now, it turns out I sent it out like only a week before the birthday party because I felt weird about it. But like 5 people used it. Everyone else said I already purchased, but thank you for this. I'm going to actually use your list for my kid's birthday, because I had done some research about popular gifts. So.
It's a great idea because you get a lot of gifts that maybe
it's a big regifting world, the toddler birthday.
But Facebook also is where I get a lot of my industry news, because I have a lot of smart Facebook friends like you.
Right, you've curated a nice list. And
that's where I hear it first. I mean, that's where we hear what's happening. Tragic news as well.
Right, that's always where I hear tragic news. And now with notifications on my, phablet, my fabulous 6 Plus. I love this phone. This is how I learned about Robin Williams. This is how I learned about what's going on anywhere. Any good news, bad news, whatever it is, I get a notification from Facebook or from my New York Times app or whatever it is. But the notifications are shaping my world.
And that's key too, because you're talking about mobile. And I think a lot of us spend the entire day only on our mobile phones now and not even using our computers at home, or maybe not even using, even though that's kind of a tablet within itself, but it's strictly
This is like
mobile.
taking a phone book up to your face when you use it, though. So I try and use the speaker. But all right, so you mentioned personalization. You mentioned visual storytelling. Is there another big trend that you're seeing?
I think mobile first or mobile only. And I know we've talked about mobile for so long,
right.
5 years.
And not just cell phone, but just portability of any sort of internet device.
Yeah,
basically.
like that's really a lot of times the only way that a a customer is communicating with their brand is through mobile.
Right. And are your other mom friends communicating to you through mobile devices as well? Like, are they sharing tidbits and information and what apps to use and that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think I share a lot, but
yeah,
I learn about something and I send it out to my mommy
to everybody.
networks.
Check this out. Yeah. I actually find out a lot on some Yahoo groups, some mommy Yahoo groups, local mommy Yahoo groups. Like when I need to know a good foot doctor or eye doctor or whatever, or I was looking for 2 years ago. I was looking for a soccer, situation for my kid, and I found this great guy that we're still with who teaches young kids soccer, because I didn't want to do the standard thing. I wanted to find something more interesting. And that has been a huge source for me, those Yahoo groups still.
I'm in a Venice Yahoo mom group.
Yeah, and I'm on a Valley one too.
And it's amazing.
Yeah, it's and the moms are so candid.
Yeah.
And then going back to healthcare, I found out a lot of information. My mom has diabetes. My kid has some attention deficit stuff going on. So I've joined sort of standard Yahoo groups for those disease states that have been hugely helpful. Hearing other parents, other people with those health issues talk about how to navigate.
Yeah. So it's, the whole promise of social media was to bring like-minded people together to share, and it's happening. It's happening in a huge way. So the question still remains, how do brands fit into that, right? And I think with Facebook, what they're doing right now with their post reach is they're saying, our users don't like it when you're just advertising to them in their news feed. That's not what they're used to. That's not how they're using Facebook. So we're going to make it a little harder for you. You're going to have to create engaging content, and that'll be pushed up. But a straight ad won't.
Oh, okay. So instead of it being like Facebook's messing with the algorithm so much, I can't read or I don't reach anyone, I don't see anything. What you're saying is they're actually trying to please the user base and create great content, which is why BuzzFeed and all these other things rise to the surface, because it's just addictively engaging content.
Yeah, and that's what Facebook is saying.
Mm-hmm. That's really cool. So let's move on to our next segment. As John finds something.
Yes.
This is called What's the Scoop segment.
What's the scoop? Okay.
Oh, nice. That's reminds me of tripping on E, actually. Not that I ever did.
Tripping on E.
Yeah, it's not that I did. It's stuff I heard about. But where do you get your information from? I know you were mentioning just now, different groups, but industry-wise, are there particular newsletters that you love? Do you read Ad Age? Are there social media?
Yeah, because Ad Age comes up on my news feed, and sometimes they have very interesting articles that are relevant to me. I think what happens is I'll have a link on my news feed on Facebook. Okay. Something related to social media could come from, let's say, you or anybody. John Patel on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn also news feed. I find it very relevant for industry news. So then I'll read that article, and then I may Google the topic of that article to go deeper.
So do you go onto LinkedIn then and just go through your feed?
I do.
Every day. And do you do the same thing with Twitter?
I don't with Twitter as much.
So it's more LinkedIn.
I use Twitter for more things. Like there's a helicopter going over my house, and I use Twitter 311 for Venice.
Yes.
I use Twitter more for
like what gang action has happened in Venice.
Exactly. More for really instantaneous news.
Okay. So and then LinkedIn for business to use, and Facebook for that
a combination
for that
of
curation.
Both, yeah.
Are there any websites that you go to or any publications that you feel like I've got to read this to be in the know this week? Like I've got to check in?
No, but once in a while, like a HubSpot will publish something interesting. There's these different, or when Forrester publishes a new report. So it really, I think it depends on what's happening and what's going on. Obviously, if Facebook makes an announcement,
shows up in a lot of places.
Shows up in so many places. And everyone has a slightly different take on it, but I think there's a lot of regurgitating of the same story again and again and again.
And that is, in a way, when someone hires you as a consultant or strategist, they're hiring you because you have built a network up that curates great content for you.
Yeah.
And so they're hiring you because you have access to all this content.
And can interpret it in a way that makes sense for the brand.
Right. That is the wisest thing to say, too, because I think that's the other problem is that you can read a news article, but so what?
Yeah.
Which is why a lot of people say to me, I'm just going to hire a bunch of millennials and we'll be fine. But the truth is, while millennials are living this lifestyle that we all are trying to understand, they don't have the years of business savvy to interpret it.
They don't, but they are extremely smart.
Well, I have positive things to say about millennials, but
so what do you think about the new keyword search that Facebook's introducing?
so talk to us about that. I don't know that much about it. What is happening?
I don't know that much about it either, but I do know that Facebook search has always sucked.
Yeah, I agree.
And so if they're doing something now to improve that, then this is, a long time coming, and that's great because you can't find anything searching on Facebook.
Yeah, that is true. I find search in general disappointing on almost every platform. We're like years ahead of where it all is.
Twitter search, I think, is good, though, but for very, very relevant things that are happening now.
And for people that stuck a hashtag in front of things, right? What about keywords in general? How do you craft good keywords? Because keywords come up in every platform now, right?
Right. Well, I think it's. We talked about social media listening. We have to talk about keyword research. So I usually don't do a kind of social media strategy now or digital strategy without a combination of social media listening as well as keyword research. So what keywords are people searching for? And they change over time because people use different words for different things.
So how do you do a keyword search without giving away,
Well, Google has great tools for that. So you can go into Google's tools and to AdWords and find out what keywords people are using, where, which countries.
So they publish lists that you can look at to see what people, and can you search by topic?
By topic,
That's
by
great.
trends over time.
I remember when we went to Google and you walk in, they had blasting on the wall the top 10 trending search words, keywords when you walked into there. Like they would just show what the world was talking about, which it's fascinating, right?
It
Absolutely
is, and
fascinating.
to see what's trending on Twitter, to see what's trending on Facebook, it's very interesting.
So keywords are still very powerful.
Yeah, well, we talked a little bit about hashtags, right?
Yeah.
So that's essentially a keyword, and so I think for brands, they're trying to figure out: do we use a popular hashtag? Do we create our own? How can we own this hashtag? And so there's new software that's out there that's helping you to really track hashtags, like hashtracking.com.
Oh, that's cool. Hashtracking. So you can see what hashtags have already been used, and then
who's using them, do some analysis on the hashtag.
Has anyone named their kid hashtag?
Oh no,
that's what I'm going to name my next dog. But it is a cute name,
and they'll never get lost, right? So I think we are getting to the end of our time together. But anything that you have coming up that you want us to check out? Anything that we could look at? You're just still a wonderful source of so many great specific things about this business that so many of us who are trying to figure it out don't always pay attention to. So anything you have coming up or anything you've worked on you want us to check out?
Well, I would love to see your CES trends because I have to say that your trends that you do each year are by far the best that
well, she's saying that unsolicited, ladies and gentlemen.
Right. I didn't see no check.
I've started to see some articles coming out on social media trends for 2015. A lot of, kind of experts start in December putting together the list. And I really have been thinking about my own trends before I would read these, before getting influence. But your trends are always right on.
That's right. We announced the actual trends with Synopsis a few weeks ago, and there's a Google Hangout if you want to check it out on YouTube. But we will be publishing in another week or two the actual trends. But Raquel was actually a big part of launching the first trends out of the IPG Media Lab. You were
we used to do them each year.
They were really fun. We would just have a very long lunch and a whiteboard, a very big whiteboard, because it's so overwhelming to try and think about this stuff, right?
Well, it's just, how things have changed over the years. You talked when we first started. I mean, brands had heard of YouTube, but they didn't know what it was, and they certainly didn't know what the opportunity was for them. MySpace was huge.
Right.
I think we had Vox was a big network.
Yes, Vox was a big publishing platform at the time. No, you forget how some things come and go, and then some things take on their own life. And what about you in terms of, is there any new piece of technology or anything that you're going to be making sure you get in your house? Anything that you must have?
Is this my Christmas
Hanukkah Harry's going to get you?
I think I'm so focused on my kid right now, actually. And speaking of Facebook, so it keeps coming up a sponsored ad. Lori likes this really cool add-on to an iPad technology for kids. So what is that? Osmo. Do I need to get that?
That is so funny. I did post that I liked it. And it comes up as a feed in your thing?
Every day.
No kidding. It's called OSMO, and it is the coolest thing in the world. It's literally... it's an application that makes what you're playing on the iPad app also be something physical. So it has a camera, a little device on it that reverses the camera back into the app. So you could be doing these pictures physically with blocks outside on the table, and then the app responds to what you're doing and impacts what you see on the screen.
That sounds so cool.
So because so many of us are worried that our kids are growing up with no, motor skills, because everything's on the iPad. Well, this now brings everything out of the iPad, leveraging the iPad as the gaming mechanism, but now it interfaces with what you're doing through the camera. So it's fascinating. So I love that. It's Osmo, and there's some other ones launching. I think the toy industry is actually going to explode with that sort of virtualization and 3D. But that's so funny. So I've been helping Osmo advertise.
Yeah, I think you might be their biggest advertiser.
I might be their biggest advertiser. Well, let's have a hand for Raquel Krouse from Sandrock Strategy. And Raquel, where can folks find you if they want to find out about social media strategy?
SandrockStrategy.com or in LinkedIn.
Because you have to have a website and on LinkedIn.
Although mine's still in construction.
Isn't all of us, our websites are forever in construction. So let's have one more big holiday. Thank you. Oh, that's nice. So this is Lori Schwartz coming to you from Tech Trends Impacting Your Business here on UBN. And listen, ladies and gentlemen, have a great holiday season. We'll be back before the end of the year. And we'll be posting our Tech Trend show as well. So check it out and enjoy this rainy season in Los Angeles. Thank you so much.
The holidays. A time for giving, a time for getting, and a time for going and going and going and going and going and going. When you need a break, we're here, helping you make sense of all the good and the going of the holidays. Happy holidays from all of us at ubnradio.com.
Try to see it my way. Do I have to keep on talking?